The insistent ringing of my husband's phone sliced through my sleep at 2 a.m. A soft, feminine voice, laced with fear, wafted from the receiver. "Ethan, honey, my power's out at home, and I'm so scared." I watched my husband, Ethan. His face, moments ago relaxed in slumber, now hardened into a mask of fury. Rage simmered in his eyes like lightning. I could only silently pray for the girl on the other end. To disturb a man as stubborn as Ethan, especially when he was awakened, was truly courting death. "What's wrong with you?" Ethan's voice was glacial. "Power outage? Call an electrician. Text me what for? Am I your father? If your dad were bothered at this hour, he'd probably slap you silly." He continued, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Scared? Look in the mirror. See who should really be scared." With that, he hung up, then fired off 5 or 6 voice recordings, each lasting nearly a minute, before slamming the phone onto the nightstand. The tall man then rolled onto his side, his voice softening into a tender murmur, "Baby, I'm so sleepy." His tone was warm and gentle now, as if the man who had just lashed out wasn't the same person. Ethan, my husband, had a rather unique temperament. He was easily angered when his sleep was disturbed. Anyone who dared to interrupt his rest would face his uncontrollable, volcanic rage. Except for his parents and me, everyone had tasted his wrath. Even stray mosquitoes flying by barely escaped his forceful swatting hands. The remarkable thing was, he remembered absolutely nothing upon waking. Everyone knew this quirk, so no one dared bother him after 8 p.m. Even his parents only contacted me for urgent matters. I had intended to turn off his phone after he fell into a deep sleep, but I hadn't anticipated someone being audacious enough to call this late. Moreover, the harshness of his scolding today was unprecedented, so severe it made me flinch. I gently coaxed him back to sleep, then picked up his phone, curious about this daring girl. The message list displayed the name and profile picture, Tiffany Bai, a new employee at Ethan's company. My friend, an accountant there, had told me about her relentless pursuit of Ethan, disregarding warnings that he was married. Tiffany actively created opportunities to meet, posting ambiguous photos online, weaving romantic tales. One particular post had caught my eye, and I asked my friend to get her WeChat ID. I added her immediately. I received a voice message filled with provocation. "You're old and unworthy. Give him up to me." Her overconfidence amused me, and I replied calmly, "What do you mean?" She asserted her youth and believed Ethan would leave me. I was annoyed, but she retracted the message, blocked, and deleted me from her contacts. Initially, I considered telling Ethan, but he was too busy and exhausted. Tiffany also didn't contact me again. I decided to remain silent, but the matter wasn't over. Observing the message history, I discovered frequent interactions between Tiffany and Ethan. Flirtatious words, suggestive images, and teasing remarks constantly appeared in her messages. Though Ethan only responded with curt, "Get lost," Tiffany remained unfazed, continuing to message and even call him. According to the call history, Ethan would only answer and immediately hang up. The most recent message was a letter over 800 words long from Tiffany, expressing admiration, unrequited love, and flowery words. Yet, she was met with Ethan's coldness. She ended with a declaration that she would no longer bother him. Her dramatic self-expression made me want to scoff. She seemed to believe those words were enough to move Ethan, to make him realize her absence and fall madly in love with her. Clearly, she'd watched too many romance dramas. While I was still considering how to handle this, a new message from Tiffany popped up. After receiving several long, harsh voice recordings from Ethan, she brazenly replied, "Honey, am I disturbing your rest? So sorry. I'll apologize to you in person tomorrow. Don't be mad at me, okay?" Attached was a photo of her in revealing clothing, striking a provocative pose. I frowned at the screen, anger rising within me. I realized I couldn't let this continue. Ethan was already under immense pressure managing the company. This persistent harassment would only add to his mental burden. I wasn't concerned about my own hurt feelings, but her actions were truly disgusting. After careful consideration, I texted my best friend, "Sweetheart, help me deal with this, number 3 Tiffany bye." The next morning, as expected, Ethan had completely forgotten about the previous night. I had cleared all messages from his phone. Everything was back to normal. I snuggled into his arm and cooed, "Honey, I'm so bored at home. I want to work at your company." "Really?" Ethan's eyes lit up, joy evident. He had long suggested I work at his company. It would be convenient for us to be closer, and my design work could easily be done remotely. Yet, he insisted on having a dedicated workspace for me in the office, both for me to focus and for him to see me more often. However, I had always refused, partly worried about impacting his startup and partly fearing gossip. Therefore, my sudden proposal thrilled him. But like fleeting joy, the smile on his face vanished. His sharp eyes narrowed, questioning me. "Something's wrong. Why do you suddenly want to come to my company?" His voice was husky, laced with suspicion. "Do you have an ulterior motive? Or are you eyeing someone in the company?" Jealousy was clear on his face. I remained silent. Seeing his expression grow more serious, I quickly explained, "It's nothing like that. Who could be better than you in any way?" I tried to reassure him, "I've thought it over carefully. I just want to be closer to you." I feigned hurt, pouting, "You still doubt me?" This tactic indeed worked. Ethan immediately apologized, rushing to comfort me, his anger dissolving. He now focused solely on arranging work for me. Initially, he suggested I work in his office, but I expressed my desire to work in the accounting department to gain experience. He frowned, pondered for a moment, then reluctantly agreed, perhaps because the accounting department was mostly female. He even planned a grand welcome ceremony, publicly declaring his ownership to the entire company. I quickly stopped him, as such fanfare would make it difficult for me to handle Tiffany. Ethan, though displeased, conceded to let me join the company discreetly, under the condition that we have some secret agreements. That afternoon, to comply with procedures, he arranged a formal interview for me. I easily passed and quietly joined the accounting department. As soon as I entered, I exchanged a glance with my best friend, enacting our prearranged plan. We pretended not to know each other, offering only polite, professional greetings like any other colleagues. After greeting everyone, I finally faced the living legend, Tiffany Bai. She wore a pristine white dress, subtly and exquisitely made up. Her face was clean and pretty, highlighted by a beauty mark under her eye, creating a delicate, pitiful aura. Tiffany, holding a freshly brewed coffee from the break room, walked out just as I arrived. Her eyes quickly scanned me from head to toe, assessing me in seconds. In that instant, I caught a flash of undisguised hatred in her eyes, a look too familiar to me, the gaze of jealousy when I overshadowed her. This morning, I had taken extra time to do my makeup, aiming for striking and captivating. I knew I looked beautiful enough today to draw everyone's attention in this room. Very quickly, she regained her composure, forcing a fake smile, and asked, "Oh, a new person? Why didn't I hear Ethan mention anything?" Ethan, though young, I often reminded him to maintain a polite demeanor at work to avoid losing his temper or scolding employees. My friends said he had done so well that many in the company thought he was approachable. Close colleagues called him Ethan G or Ethan CA, but only Tiffany insisted on calling him Ethan, honey, with a suggestive tone. I merely glanced at her, not replying. As she passed me, she seemingly intentionally bumped her shoulder hard against mine, causing the coffee cup to spill all over my coat. "Oops, oh my gosh. So sorry." My hand suddenly slipped, she exclaimed, feigning surprise. Luckily, it didn't spill on me. This dress of mine cost 2,000 yuan, you know. I frowned. Most clothes in my closet were high-end designs custom-made by Ethan, worth 10 times her 2,000 yuan dress. But money wasn't my concern. More importantly, this coat was unique, one of a kind. Before I could speak, she stuffed a napkin into my hand, casually saying, "Oh well, don't mind it. This coat of yours can be dry cleaned, right?" With that, she turned and walked away, her dismissive attitude as if nothing significant had happened. I was so angry I was speechless. Just as I was about to argue, my phone buzzed with a message from my best friend. She sent me screenshots from Tiffany's private chat group with other accounting department colleagues. This gaudily dressed woman. Just looking at her, you know there's going to be a lot of drama. Isn't she here to seduce Ethan? Haha, look at herself. Who does she think she is to catch Ethan's eye? The messages became increasingly vulgar, filled with arrogant mockery from Tiffany. Two colleagues close to her chimed in enthusiastically. My friend messaged me privately, unbelievable. Want me to handle these bitches? I lowered my head, quickly replying no need. The show's about to begin. Tiffany thought that as a longtime employee, she could rally everyone to ostracize me, forcing me to retreat. But she didn't know I had a similar plan. Firing her wasn't interesting. I wanted to make her cry and leave this place on her own accord. After dabbing at the coffee stain on my coat, I pretended nothing had happened, took out the gifts I had prepared, the latest Chanel perfume, and began distributing them to everyone in the office. Hi everyone, I'm new here. Hope you can all help me out. I smiled gently, starting with my best friend. She received the perfume, her eyes widening in surprise. Oh my gosh, isn't this the newest Chanel perfume? It's not cheap at all. Others also received their gifts, their eyes sparkling. No one could hide their delight. At this point, Tiffany, standing aside, chuckled softly, her tone sarcastic. New Chanel perfume, so expensive. A new intern like you, how could you afford so many? Little Mia, did you buy these from a discount online platform? There are so many fakes now. Recently, there were even news reports saying that smelling low-quality perfume can cause illness. As soon as she finished speaking, some in the office hesitated, placing the perfume bottles on their desks, a hint of doubt in their eyes. Their suspicion wasn't entirely unfounded. In my resume, I had stated that I had been a stay-at-home wife for 3 years before becoming an intern. Before I could speak, my best friend immediately retorted, "Come on, at least she gave everyone gifts when she just joined. What about you? All you do is stand there and criticize. Even if she bought them from a discount site, high-quality fakes there still cost several hundred yuan. Besides, there's a code on the perfume packaging. Just check it to see if it's real or fake." My friend had never liked Tiffany, but because they worked in the same office, she had always tried to maintain harmony. Now that I was present, she didn't hesitate to stand up for me. Even so, her words were measured because to help me expose Green Tea Tiffany, she needed to keep her role secret. Hearing that they could check the code, several colleagues immediately opened the packaging to verify. Wow, it's real. I checked too, it's genuine. Indeed, it's real. Thank you, little Mia. Must have cost a lot, right? In no time, the atmosphere in the office became lively again. Those who had received gifts thanked me, making Tiffany's expression darken further. I just smiled faintly, observing her. When she heard the perfume I bought was real, Tiffany's eyes instantly changed. She couldn't hide her longing, staring intently at the last perfume bottle I was holding. At this moment, I walked towards her, holding the perfume bottle, feigning surprise. Oh, turns out this one I bought from a discount site. If you don't like it, then never mind. No need to force yourself, I said, then turned and walked straight back to my desk. Without looking, I could guess Tiffany's face was now purple with rage. Meanwhile, the office atmosphere was filled with laughter and ease. Everyone was happy except Tiffany. She sat there, quickly typing something on her phone, her face full of annoyance, as if she was about to lose control and unleash a torrent of curses. Sure enough, soon after, my best friend sent me a few more screenshots. These were messages Tiffany just wrote in her private chat group. So fake. Someone like her, where would she get the money? Looking generous on the surface, but her pockets are probably empty. I've seen many people like this. I suspect she borrowed money to buy these things. Who knows if accepting her gifts will bring trouble? The venomous words kept coming, but this time, no one in the group responded. The colleagues who had received gifts from me were now very pleased with their presents, and no one wanted to continue badmouthing me. 2 minutes later, finally, one person who was usually quiet messaged back, "Don't think so badly of others." I think she's quite nice. Immediately, Tiffany kicked that person out of the group. I glanced back at her, noticing Tiffany's face had turned green. My best friend lowered her head, stifling a laugh, and texted me, "Well done, my darling. In just half a day, you've won over the whole office. This green tea is clearly losing it. But it's a pity, those perfume bottles weren't cheap either. Total cost must be tens of thousands of yuan, right?" I texted back nonchalantly, "So what about that little bit of money? You know, money is the last thing I care about." My friend immediately replied with an eye-rolling emoji, Okay, rich lady. I'm tired of hearing that phrase. I just chuckled lightly. Actually, I wasn't as wealthy as she said. Although both my family and Ethan's were quite well off since childhood, we were taught to be independent, not to rely on family. Therefore, we chose to build everything from scratch. Currently, our business and career were still in the development phase, so I cherished every penny I earned. However, my view on money was simple. Saving wasn't about not spending a lot, but about ensuring that every penny spent could bring back value far exceeding itself. That was the optimal way to maximize profit. After the perfume incident, Tiffany's face remained unpleasant all morning. She didn't even bother to continue cursing me in the group. The morning passed peacefully. But in the afternoon, suddenly, someone sent a friend request to my work account. Thinking it was a colleague, I didn't think much and accepted immediately. As soon as I confirmed, that person sent me a series of vulgar and obscene messages, even failing the censorship standards of any platform. Before I could react, another friend request containing vulgar language kept flooding in, exceeding 100 in less than 30 minutes. I calmly replied to the first person, requesting clarification of the reason. The answer was a screenshot of a post on a popular forum, telling a story about an intern being bullied, demeaned, and accused of being cheap with gifts, leading to a relapse of depression. The post included a photo of me working, clearly taken from Tiffany's viewpoint, and more notably, my phone number was revealed in the comments, then deleted with a message asking everyone to pretend they didn't know. The campaign to punish me, the one labeled as a bully, had officially begun. This was just a familiar fabrication to me. I quickly saved the evidence, screenshots of the post, account information, posting time, and all comments, and sent them to another account to secure evidence. To everyone's surprise, I walked to Tiffany's desk and placed my phone on the table. Article 42 of the Administrative Penalties Law of the People's Republic of China clearly stipulates that fabricating and defaming others' reputation is punishable by fines or detention from 5 to 10 days. If widely spread, exceeding 500 shares, criminal liability may be pursued, I declared, my tone cold, my eyes sharp. Tiffany was stunned, stammering in denial. "I didn't post that. Whether you did or not, you know clearly yourself. 2 choices, publicly apologize and clarify the truth, or I call the police." I gave her no chance to evade. Panic was evident on Tiffany's face, but she still tried to maintain a tough tone, blaming the office environment. Her high-pitched voice drew the attention of colleagues, splitting them into 2 factions, those close to Tiffany and me, a new intern easily sacrificed. A colleague, with a worried expression, pointed at my phone. "The account posting is newly created, but the background is our office." I calmly replied, "This office, is it only for me and Tiffany?" Tiffany, supported by colleagues, scoffed, her voice getting louder. "Prove I did it." I calmly opened her account for everyone to see. She vehemently objected, "Privacy. You have no right." I remained silent, observing her reaction. Seeing I didn't refute, Tiffany became even more arrogant, glancing at me provocatively. "A new intern using a post to frame the company. What's your purpose? Are you a spy from a competitor?" Some colleagues began to suspect. Our company had grown rapidly under Ethan's leadership, so being targeted by competitors wasn't out of the question. I smiled, my tone icy. "If you suspect, call the police. I'm willing to cooperate with the investigation." My suggestion to call the police startled Tiffany, but she still tried to appear tough, challenging. "Go ahead and do it then." During this time, she secretly operated her phone, deleting traces. I remained calm, suggesting making everything public, emphasizing that even deleting the post, traces still existed online. Tiffany's actions faltered. The change in her complexion, from flushed red to pale white, reflected her anxiety. Tension filled the room. A colleague close to Tiffany tried to mediate, suggesting a peaceful resolution, avoiding involving the police. Some other colleagues agreed. Tiffany breathed a sigh of relief, thinking everything was about to be settled smoothly. I couldn't help but chuckle coldly. Those around wanted to turn big issues into small ones, I understood. Life often makes us endure, thinking if we just bear it, everything will pass. But sometimes that only emboldens the wrongdoer. Someone like Tiffany, if not stopped in time, would continue to do increasingly outrageous things. And those who condoned her were also accomplices. In fact, I had also been an accomplice initially. When I first realized the problem, I didn't immediately act, leading to things escalating to this point. Just as I was about to speak, my best friend laughed coldly, her voice sarcastic. You guys feel it's okay because the one being smeared isn't you. But try to imagine, if one day you were bombarded with messages cursing you from hundreds of strangers, would you still think it's no big deal? Today she dares to do this to little Mia, who can guarantee she won't turn on you tomorrow? These words made some colleagues pause. They fell silent, glancing at each other, a hint of unease flickering in their eyes. What nonsense are you talking? Tiffany, face ashen, rushed to confront my friend, her tone harsh. I'll say it again, if you think I posted it, show me the evidence. If not, I'll sue you for slander. Clearly, she was confident we had no way to prove it. Just then, my phone vibrated. I opened it and saw a message just sent. It was a string of incomprehensible codes and characters, but one thing was clear on the screen. The name, Tiffany Bai, appeared under identity verification. I chuckled softly. Indeed, professionals, incredibly fast. Turning back, I saw Tiffany was still loudly arguing with my friend, her face smug, her tone increasingly aggressive. I raised my phone, gently saying, "Evidence is here." The entire office fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Tiffany's expression changed rapidly, from red to green, from smug to stunned, then to panic, half believing, half doubting. Impossible. Oh, she just opened her mouth and realized she had slipped up, quickly changing her tone. If it's really like that, then show it to everyone. No need to remind me, I coldly replied, then directly sent the screenshot to the department's chat group, calmly saying, perhaps everyone doesn't understand clearly. Let me explain. The part labeled name on the image is the identification information of the IP address owner who posted it. Next is the citizen ID number. No need to say more. In the latter part is a list of other accounts belonging to this IP address owner. If everyone checks, you'll definitely recognize that at least once these accounts have attacked or cursed someone. As soon as I finished speaking, Tiffany's face turned ashen. She frantically pulled out her phone, her hands trembling, but it was too late. Several colleagues had already started searching for the accounts in the image, and after checking, the expressions on their faces were varied, but certainly no one was smiling. Tiffany, what did you do? A colleague with a fiery personality couldn't hold back any longer, loudly questioning. You said I was petty and stingy with a terrible personality. Have I ever treated you badly? Those lipsticks I gave you for your birthday, weren't they all from official stores? Tiffany stood frozen, her face pale, stammering, I didn't say you. You still dare to say you didn't say me? Tiffany, I really didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Driven to a corner, Tiffany tried to fabricate a reason to justify herself. I only did it to increase views. In my heart, I didn't think like that. She grabbed the arm of the colleague, frantically explaining, I really didn't have bad intentions towards anyone. People say people's hearts are hard to fathom, and now I see it's true. The hot-tempered colleague forcefully pushed her hand away, anger evident in her eyes. Other colleagues standing around looked at Tiffany with cold eyes. No one spoke up to defend her anymore. Tiffany began to panic, then burst into tears. She wiped away tears while explaining, I didn't mean it, really. I just wanted to get some views to earn money. I didn't mean to hate or offend anyone. I'll delete the post right now. I'll delete everything. Saying this, she tremblingly picked up her phone, deleting all posts on her accounts. Still explaining and apologizing. I coldly asked, my gaze sharp, staring at her. Tiffany turned to me, her face distorted with anger, but in the end, she still had to grit her teeth, her eyes red, saying, I will explain. Seeing her back down, a colleague stepped forward to mediate. Well, this matter isn't too serious. She already knows her mistake. Let's just drop it. Most colleagues, not wanting to escalate things, nodded in agreement and returned to their desks. Only a few remained, looking at Tiffany suspiciously, but ultimately couldn't bear to reproach her further seeing her crying. The office returned to silence, only Tiffany standing alone, tears streaming down her face. If it were someone else, perhaps they would believe she was truly remorseful, but not me. I glanced at the small mirror on my desk, clearly seeing a flash of malice in her eyes before her face again filled with a pitiful expression. This isn't over yet, Tiffany, I thought to myself, the corner of my lips curling into a cold smile. In the days following the post incident, Tiffany temporarily didn't pull any outrageous stunts. However, she kept messaging Ethan, filled with half-truths and veiled hints. Recently, Ethan was swamped with work, having no time to check messages on WeChat. I offered to help him manage his account. Ethan happily agreed, without the slightest suspicion. Unlike before, upon receiving the account, I quickly replied to Tiffany's message. Seemingly not expecting Ethan to reply, Tiffany immediately perked up. Her tone in the messages became more excited. I started with a simple question about the company's situation. Initially, she seemed cautious, but after only a few messages back and forth, she spilled a long string, even detailing a list of people who often left late without turning off the office lights. But the truth was, the people on the list she mentioned, I had investigated beforehand. They might have made some minor mistakes, but in work, they were all dedicated employees, always working for the company's benefit. The only thing making them problematic was their poor relationship with Tiffany. Those were also the people she targeted in the defamation post previously. Finally, she messaged, Ethan, honey, I feel the new employee who came recently is very suspicious. I doubt her identity. She started beating around the bush. I pretended to ask, suspicious in what way? She just joined the company and tried to curry favor with colleagues, making the office uneasy. I suspect she's from a competitor company, intending to sow internal discord. If we let this continue, I'm afraid the company will be in danger. Reading this message, I almost burst out laughing. This company was the result of hard work and dedication from Ethan and me, built from scratch. She said I was from a competitor company, trying to destroy my own company. Perhaps she should be thankful that the person receiving the message was me. If this message had reached Ethan, with his temperament, she would definitely be kicked out of the company before she even understood what happened. But at the same time, I realized I was lucky. If I weren't Ethan's wife, but an ordinary employee, then with just a few words of incitement from her, I could very well have been targeted by a less discerning boss. Just as I was about to reply, she sent another message, Ethan, don't worry. I've thought of a way to drive her out of the company. As a member of the company, I definitely won't let the company be threatened. I didn't reply. What she intended to do, I didn't know. But perhaps she didn't realize that she and I were thinking alike. Before leaving work that day, I passed by the staircase and saw a notice posted on the wall, surveillance camera system undergoing maintenance. I stopped, my eyes scanning the notice. My best friend, curious, asked, "What's up?" I nodded slightly towards the notice. She understood immediately. We exchanged a knowing look, a subtle smile playing on our lips, both understanding what was about to happen. The next morning, a chaotic scene greeted me in the office. Documents and personal belongings were scattered and tossed everywhere. A perfume bottle shattered, glass shards strewn about, a lipstick broken in half. The messy scene made anyone uncomfortable. Colleagues stood there, witnessing the scene, but no one spoke. Tiffany appeared, a smile playing on her lips, then covering her mouth, feigning shock, her exaggerated expression like an amateur actor trying too hard to act deeply. "Oh my God. The office. What happened here?" She feigned ignorance. I looked at her coldly, my tone indifferent. "Don't pretend. You did it, didn't you?" "You're framing me," she denied. "You know very well who else here could do this?" Tiffany started playing the victim, tears welling up. "Little Mia, you can't treat me like this. I was wrong before, but you can't just blame me for everything bad. If you don't believe me, let's check the cameras." "Cameras are broken," I replied curtly. "Broken? What a coincidence." Tiffany feigned worry, the corner of her mouth twitching, revealing a hint of triumph. My friend couldn't stand her pretense any longer, her tone cold. "Stop acting. The camera maintenance notice is right by the elevator. Everyone saw it." I didn't pay attention. "Who would notice those things?" Tiffany argued, her tone getting louder. "Cameras are broken. Does that prove I did it? You need evidence." Seeing her stubbornness, I just found it amusing. I hoped she remembered the slap in the face she received before, when she cried and begged for forgiveness. If she had repented, I would have let it go, but no, she remained obstinate, not stopping at all. Shamelessly, she retorted, "What if you did it yourself and then blamed me?" "Little Mia, don't be like that." Tiffany sought support from colleagues, her tone questioning. "You guys, did you see anything?" A colleague, who was close to Tiffany, seemed unable to bear it any longer, stepping in to mediate, her voice gentle. "Tiffany, it's best if you honestly admit your mistake." Tiffany's face suddenly changed, her voice almost screaming, interrupting her. "Admit mistake? Admit what mistake? You need to have evidence." That colleague replied, her voice soft but firm. "Last night, I witnessed it with my own eyes." Before the explanation was finished, Tiffany loudly interrupted, stepping forward, aggressively questioning. "Witnessed what? Witnessed me damaging her things? If you saw it, why didn't you stop me? I suspect you're the one who sabotaged and then framed me." The fierce accusations stunned the colleague, unable to react in time. Disappointment was evident on her face. Others also began looking at Tiffany with different eyes, no longer standing on her side. I calmly spoke up, my tone cold and indifferent. "Not just her alone. All of us witnessed the event." Tiffany froze, her expression panicked mixed with bewilderment. Another colleague further explained, "Last night after work, little Mia treated us to dinner at the restaurant across the street. From the restaurant window, we clearly saw all your actions in the office." The colleague pointed towards the large window facing the office. The curtain was still slightly drawn, just like last night. Tiffany's face turned deathly pale. She had thought the camera maintenance would help her conceal her revenge, not expecting everything to be exposed through the window across the street. All her actions of damaging belongings, breaking perfume, tearing documents, were clearly revealed before everyone's eyes. Tiffany's true nature had been exposed in front of the entire office. Tiffany stood unsteadily, her face stiff, then suddenly collapsed, her voice cracking with indignation. She wailed, "Oh, you're framing me. Little Mia, you did this on purpose." I still maintained a calm demeanor, pulling up a chair and sitting down, taking out a calculator, quickly operating it. "It's okay. Damaged belongings are a minor issue. As long as you compensate, it's fine. Let me calculate it for you." I smiled, my calm composure almost driving the other person insane. "Don't worry, for used items, I'll give you a 20% discount." I leisurely pressed the calculator, reading out each item aloud. Chanel perfume, 3,000 yuan. 3 lipsticks, 2,500 yuan. The scratched bag, 50,000 yuan. Oh, and the coat stained with coffee when I first joined. Let's say, total damage according to system calculation is 358,900 yuan. Tiffany's face turned deathly pale, vehemently refuting, "This is slander. Those things aren't worth that much." She accused me of intentionally framing her, taking advantage of the situation to exert pressure. I replied with a faint smile. "Karma is a natural law. Every action has a cause and effect. If you doubt my calculation, I'm happy to provide detailed invoices. Tiffany angrily called for help. Just then, my phone also rang. I looked at the screen, smirking. The person she called was my husband. I calmly answered, turning on speakerphone, Tiffany's sweet voice spreading throughout the office. The whole room fell silent. Tiffany and the colleagues were all stunned. My best friend softly asked, "Tiffany, why are you calling little Mia's husband?" I smiled and replied, "My husband is busy with bank transfer matters. No need to bother him. Just transfer directly to me." Tiffany's face turned green, from pale white to purplish blue, finally a ghastly gray. Everyone looked at me in surprise. "Little Mia, Ethan CO is your husband? Then you are." I nodded in affirmation. I understood everyone's surprise. Anyone would be shocked to know that their everyday, friendly colleague was actually the wife of the powerful director. However, my purpose wasn't to show off, but to resolve the troubles in the company. I looked at Tiffany, smiling. "Oh, I almost forgot to mention, the messages you received earlier were all replied by me." Tiffany was stunned, her belief system collapsing completely. She stood there, her mouth trembling, speechless, like a stone statue. Everyone remained silent, witnessing Tiffany's downfall, only bewilderment and deep thoughts in each person's mind. The unexpected happened. Tiffany suddenly fainted. Colleagues quickly rushed her to the hospital. A few days later, her resignation letter was sent in. She didn't even come to collect her personal belongings, clearly trying to evade compensation liability. However, I had proactively contacted a lawyer, providing full evidence of the damages, demanding she bear full responsibility. According to the lawyer, after leaving the court, he heard a fierce argument between Tiffany and a man, believed to be her boyfriend. I was truly surprised. But in any case, everything finally came to an end. After this incident, she no longer appeared to harass Ethan. A few days later, Ethan heard about Tiffany's resignation and learned about what had happened in the office. He called me into his office, curiously asking, "You've been in the company for so long, and you only managed to drive out just her?" His question puzzled me. Before I could understand his meaning, he pulled me into his arms, his voice filled with emotion, saying, "Baby, tell me the truth. Did you come to the company because of me? I know it. You were jealous, weren't you? I promise I'll behave myself, won't let you worry." His eyes were bright and clear like a puppy waiting for praise. I looked at him helplessly, sighing, "Okay, I give up." After my identity was revealed, except for my best friend, the mood of the colleagues in the office wasn't very good. To soothe everyone's wounded hearts, I decided to personally pay, along with Ethan, to invite the entire office to a dinner at a hotel after work. After a few rounds of toasts, the atmosphere gradually became lively. Taking advantage of Ethan's absence, a few colleagues pulled me aside to drink with them. While drinking, they began sincerely teasing about Ethan. They said he was the perfect man, always upholding male virtue, a true model of a wife-doting husband. Their words made my skin crawl. I could only chuckle inwardly. If they knew how clingy Ethan was at home, their goosebumps would have no space left to rise. However, a colleague's next sentence caught my attention. One person recounted that she had once personally seen Tiffany deliberately go to Ethan's office, but in less than 2 minutes, Ethan had directly chased her out. Everyone in the office saw this. Initially, I thought she would stop, who knew she would still secretly stalk him. "I think she has something wrong with her head, like she has OCD." Another person added, her voice full of sarcasm. The group nodded in agreement. Hearing this, I frowned slightly. Ethan indeed suffered from OCD, but thanks to my companionship and his parents' support over the years, his symptoms had almost disappeared. However, with what I knew about Tiffany, she showed no signs of any mental illness. So why was she so persistently pursuing Ethan? A bold thought suddenly flashed in my mind. I recalled that after Tiffany resigned, the financial documents she had been responsible for were all handed over to my best friend. I immediately asked her to carefully re-examine all the accounts Tiffany had handled. My friend nodded in agreement, reassuring me somewhat. Afterward, I went to the restroom. On my way back to the room, I noticed a man with a buzz cut standing right in front of a private room nearby. He was bent over, doing something with his hand, but his eyes kept glancing at me. Instinct told me something was wrong. I took 2 more steps towards him, observing from the corner of my eye, and realized his feet also subtly moved towards me. Almost instantly, I knew I was right. This man was trouble. Thinking this, I immediately turned around, pretending nothing was wrong, and intended to leave this area. But at that moment, he seemed to realize something too, quickly put away whatever was in his hand, and lunged straight towards me. I panicked and ran, shouting loudly, "Fire! Fire!" I hoped to attract the attention of those around, but before I could take 2 steps, a large hand clamped over my mouth. Immediately, a strange scent assailed my nostrils. I felt as if all strength in my body was drained in an instant. I slumped down, unable to resist. Realizing what the scent was, I tried to hold my breath to avoid completely losing consciousness. The man dragged me into a private room nearby. Inside, a middle-aged man in a neat suit, paunchy, with lustful eyes, a sinister smile, stared intently at me. The kidnapper shoved me onto the sofa, then went to a corner of the room, busying himself with something. I peered closely and realized it was a camera being adjusted, the lens pointed directly at me. "Mr. Tong, once the job's done, 1 million as promised, right? Rest assured, you won't be shortchanged." The middle-aged man called Mr. Tong chuckled sinisterly, his greasy hands slowly reaching towards me. Tong Viet, I managed to utter, but my body had no strength left, my voice weak and soft, almost lifeless. He paused, his smile widening. "You still remember me?" "I remember, of course I remember, Tong Viet, the former driver of the Ethan family. Back then, when Ethan was young, he was the person Ethan trusted the most. Yet, for money, he planned to kidnap Ethan. After getting the ransom, he still heartlessly pushed Ethan off a cliff. I witnessed everything because that day, I was hitching a ride in the Ethan family car. Ironically, I also became a hostage. During the fall, I tightly grabbed Ethan's hand. Perhaps that's why, even though he became cold and suspicious, I was still the only person he trusted after that incident. Tong Viet escaped abroad with the ransom. The Ethan family reported to the police, but lacking evidence, DNA testing at that time was still limited. The case quickly closed without progress. Later, when Ethan and I started our business, we were often subjected to unfair competition. It was rumored that the mastermind was Tong Viet. I never expected it to be him. Do you know this behavior is illegal? I tried to keep my voice steady, though powerless. If looks could kill, he would have died 100 times under my gaze. He laughed triumphantly, pointing at the camera. "I know. That's why I'm recording it. Ethan won't let you be disgraced, won't dare to call the police." He knew, to him, I was the most important. He grasped Ethan's weakness clearly. "What do you want?" I gritted my teeth. "What do I want?" His face contorted, then he laughed loudly. "I want Ethan bankrupt. I want the Ethan family to be destroyed. You're insane. The Ethan family never mistreated you. Mistreated or not?" He narrowed his eyes. "I worked as their driver for so many years. When I was in debt from gambling, they didn't help me a dime, forcing me to kidnap their son. They themselves pushed me to the brink, forcing me to live like a rat abroad for so many years, not daring to go home. Do you know how miserable I was?" He agitatedly roared at me. I chuckled faintly. "That was your choice. Why blame others? What do you know? What do you understand?" he bellowed. Actually, I didn't understand, but I knew there were people who harbored hatred for the whole world, needing no reason to justify their cruelty. "I want them to suffer too, to know that feeling," he said. He moved to tear my clothes. Bang! The room door was kicked open. I saw a familiar figure, his eyes filled with murderous intent, rage as if wanting to incinerate everything. At that moment, he was like a shining light. I suddenly thought, when I grabbed his hand, did he look at me the way I was looking at him now? Ethan rushed in, pushing Tong Viet sprawling to the ground. Quick as lightning, He pulled me out of the room, entrusting me to my best friend, worry etched on his face. Turning back, he grabbed a wine bottle nearby, smashing it hard over Tong Viet's head as he tried to flee. His miserable groans echoed as the wine bottle struck him a second time. "Ethan," I called out, my voice trembling. He turned back, his eyes bloodshot with rage, but my gaze seemed to soothe his fury. I already alerted you when I sensed something was amiss. Luckily, this time I wasn't hurt. But if it were before, perhaps I would have stopped him, suggested reporting to the police. Ethan, with Tong Viet, this isn't simply a legal issue, but a personal vendetta between you two. Don't beat him to death, I said calmly. Beat him half to death, then get some extra compensation too. He nodded, slamming the room door shut. Tong Viet's weak, miserable screams echoed from inside. The police arrived and arrested Tong Viet. The accomplice had escaped, but an arrest warrant had been issued. Capture was only a matter of time. I rested at home for a day to recover. Though not seriously injured, I was still mentally exhausted. Until evening, my best friend called. "Little Mia, you're so perceptive. I just re-examined Tiffany's books and guess what? There's a problem. If it weren't for you, and the authorities suddenly investigating, the company would have lost money at least, or even gone bankrupt at worst. I've provided all the evidence to the police. They've arrested Tiffany already." She continued to update me on company news, asked about my health, then hung up. In less than 2 days, Tiffany was arrested, and the person who drugged me was also apprehended. It turned out to be her boyfriend, who was Tong Viet's driver. Both were deeply in debt. To earn money, Tiffany worked at Ethan's company, not only providing internal information, but also manipulating accounting books. She deliberately provoked me and harassed Ethan to divert attention. After the plan failed and she was fired, they had a fierce argument. Finally, they cooperated with Tong Viet to kidnap me. Ethan had collected enough evidence and sued all three in court. The kidnapping case from years ago was reopened. For the crimes of kidnapping, attempted murder of a minor, and unfair competition, Tong Viet was sentenced to life imprisonment. Tiffany and her boyfriend received 8 and 10 years in prison, respectively. It was said that during the appeal process, they argued fiercely in court, even accusing each other of more crimes, leading to increased sentences. Everything came to an end, but for me, this wasn't just punishment for the criminals, but also a profound lesson about never tolerating evil. After the drug attack, although the headaches had lessened, my digestive system was still malfunctioning, causing persistent fatigue and discomfort. In the evenings, I often felt sleepy and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Ethan noticed the instability in my health and took me to the hospital. On the way, he showed clear worry, his face etched with tension. I tried to reassure him it's okay, probably just a minor issue. However, his eyes remained bloodshot, revealing fatigue and anxiety. He apologized. "It's my fault for not taking better care of you. If anything happened to you, I wouldn't be able to live on." His words carried a determination that startled me. I understood his personality, knew he was entirely capable of doing what he said. I patted his back gently. "What are you saying? Live well, or who will burn incense for you when you're gone?" Right after saying that, realizing my tactlessness, I quickly added, shhh, who's going to die? I'm still healthy here, don't curse me." Truthfully, I had been influenced by his somewhat extreme thinking. But facing his red-rimmed eyes, my heart couldn't help but soften. The atmosphere in the car was heavy, suffocating. At the hospital, after completing the tests, I sat waiting for the results, feeling uneasy. When the medical staff handed over the results, I quickly took them, but hesitated, not daring to open them. Ethan took the report from my hand. As he read the results, his expression changed dramatically, his eyes becoming deep and serious. I felt a chill, an indescribable fear enveloping me. "Tell me," I said, trying to remain calm. "I'm ready," he stammered. "In your belly. Is there something wrong?" I hugged my stomach, worried. "Is it a tumor? Is the tumor benign?" "It's a baby." His answer stunned me, unbelievable. I snatched the report back from his hand, carefully reading each word. I'm pregnant? I'm pregnant. Ethan hugged me tightly, his eyes brimming with happiness, almost jumping for joy. At that moment, I suddenly remembered a philosopher's saying. Fortune and misfortune are intertwined. Perhaps after all the hardships and trials, fortune finally came to us.